Wesley Bugg is the Chief Operating Officer of Reaching Our Sisters Everywhere, ROSE, and the Director of Reaching Our Brothers Everywhere. ROBE's mission is to educate, equip, and empower men to impact an increase in breastfeeding rates and a decrease in infant mortality rates within the African American communities. You can meet the men of ROBE in Kindred's four-part oral history series, Standing at the Intersection of Fatherhood, Infant Mortality, Breastfeeding, and Social Justice, at kindredmedia.org. Stay tuned at the end of the interview with Wesley to watch two ROBE videos, one animated video on postpartum care for mothers, and one hilarious video for dads of a toddler's intergender nipple confusion. You can visit ROBE at breastfeedingrobe.org.
So at an early age, my mother did a lot of in-home breastfeeding support. So I've always seen breastfeeding. It's always been a part of my life. I didn't choose to be an advocate until after law school, where I learned and acquired skills and degrees that I knew that I could be helpful in the workspace. I had always, or for a long time, wanted to be an advocate for others. So I've always wanted to help if somebody was sick, if someone was poor, if someone was hungry. I've always wanted to help that person. But this lactation field specifically, I was introduced to at an early age with my mother. It was only through the science, learning about the disparities, and seeing that this is something I can dedicate either my whole self or a large majority of my professional self into the work, and it be a meaningful thing that I wanted to be a part of. Also, my parents' history, my dad's a neonatologist. I have a twin sister who's now in the medical field, two older sisters who are both school teachers, and a little brother who is interested also in helping with disparities. So as a family unit, we knew that we could give something back to our communities, whether that was through tutoring or through our advocacy of keeping babies alive and mothers healthy.
So, in your mother's interview, she said that it was the birth of her twins that inspired her to get help. So you inspired her in that way to become a breastfeeding advocate. That's fun. That's wonderful. So along the way, though, what were the barriers that came up, and were they surprising to you?
They were surprising, especially because it seemed to me to be intentional. And that I do not say lightly, because I think there's a lot of good in the world. I do believe there's some wickedness in the world. Breastfeeding in particular, I did not think would be problematic. So I understand where people have different choices or opinions or preferences, such as, do I buy a Jeep or do I buy a two-door car? Do I want my child playing basketball or football? But in terms of breastfeeding, where the science seems to push overwhelmingly on one side of it being beneficial, and there not being many reasons why someone should not breastfeed other than transmitting certain diseases or things that the mother may have digested, why you would not want to do that, and why the national government would not want to do that, or why as people we would not want to do that. So one of the barriers that I thought was the intentional marketing of formula, or the intentional myths about why it's more cool to use formula instead of breastfeeding, or how it's more convenient, or that there's not a significant outcome in the life of the child. So all the mixed messaging that was done intentionally, there's whole $1 million, $1 billion companies around it. Also, what I thought was interesting was a lack of education. So, I do know there's that marketing campaign, but never in school, even today, 2021, are there curriculums built on teaching the benefits or advantages of breastfeeding? And that to me is still mind blowing to this day, that we teach sperm, we teach ovaries, we teach safe sex, we teach abstinence, all things that pre-sex adolescents need to know about. But as a full person and as an elder, and I'm only 30 years old, and from people who teach me and are more wise or more senior than I, for them to not want to trickle down breastfeeding as almost a staple of our society. So people believe that milk, cow milk, has strong calcium, is good in calcium, helps strong bones, and has those benefits, and that's been debated as much, as other things. But breast milk at all is not in there. Or what a healthy diet looks like for a person, how many hours someone needs to sleep, what a good career looks like, what a happy family looks like, what the American dream is. There's all these things to achieve, and yet breastfeeding is not usually portrayed in any of these stories. And I feel like that's a big miss.
So you're working with fathers. How are the fathers being receptive to the being? I'm thinking about. I'll tell our viewers at the end of my call with Wesley, where you're going to get to see one of the videos that ROBE made about how to go to the hospital together in a group as a family with a mother of color. So the mother of color's rates of survival and the infant's rates of survival are increased. So this is an incredible video, animated, very effective, that ROBE, Reaching Our Brothers Everywhere, has created. And another one of those, how do you get over, around, under, or through a barrier? We'll go to that at the end. But how, so in the barriers that you're looking at with ROBE, how are the fathers, or how are they receptive to breastfeeding?
Yes, they love it. Fathers absolutely love it. And that's why I'm passionate about the job that I have. I tell people when I travel that I don't feel like a used car salesman or someone trying to push a limit or something that I don't believe is something that they would benefit from. So fathers love it. A lot of times I hear, how can I do the job that you have? So a lot of fathers see it as job creation or career path. That instead of me being in an assembly line, or instead of me being a piece of a larger machine that I don't get to control or have any influence on the output. Instead, in this fatherhood work, or by encouraging breastfeeding or encouraging being a pillar of my community, I now can get paid to provide and look out for our legacy, or for my legacy, which is usually a large motivation for men. So when I tell a father that their daughter is less likely to have to fight against breast cancer if she breastfeeds, and that significant other is less likely to fight against breast cancer, huge push, a huge push. They love that. When I tell them their children could be smarter and healthier, deal with less health concerns such as asthma or other concerns that they themselves may have. So I have asthma and I was breastfed. So had I not been breastfed, my asthma could have been worse, or could be worse to this day. So even when we discuss, realistically and practically, breastfeeding can't completely eliminate every woe in the world. It can dramatically, significantly, scientifically proven reduce a lot of those obstacles. Fathers are very much on board. They want the best for their child, they want the best for their loved ones, and they see themselves as being a component, because we talk about all fatherhood aspects in this work, in the breastfeeding work. So if a father's homeless, it's going to be hard for him to advocate for breastfeeding. If a father's unemployed, if a father himself doesn't have health insurance, if a father's not literate. So by working with these men on helping their children, I also get to help them and hear what else they need. Is transportation an issue in your community? You might have a breastfeeding center or a Healthy Start or other advocates of breastfeeding near you, but if you can't get to them because they're 40 minutes away and you don't have a vehicle, then that's not helpful. So we got to learn the impact of telehealth and how powerful social media can be, both in entertainment but also education. If I can set up a Zoom call and help a father learn about breastfeeding, learn about the issues his significant other may be having while trying to breastfeed, or connect them with healthcare professionals who can, help them in that field, they love it. And it builds a trust, it builds that relationship piece where now this father may have another skill that he wants to bring to fatherhood. He might be a graphic artist and can make flyers for other people's events. He may be a radio host or a journalist like yourself who can spread the good message about what's going on to educate or to increase the awareness for those who just don't know. So I do feel like some people just don't know. And that for me is still, unfortunate with the age of internet that we are in now and the age of socialization. But, even with people who are 40, 50, 60 and not as capable or do not know as much as the internet has to provide, that's one issue. So those are some barriers, just how familiar someone is with new technology. So I'm sure there are new companies and new apps that promote these things that I may not even be familiar with. So just kind of increasing awareness. But fathers love this work. Fathers, men, supporters, everyone.
So Wesley, you not only work on the ground in a grassroots way with community, and you get to hear the stories of fathers that come through your door, or that you go out and meet. I know on our interview on Kindred, you had photos of ROBE in barbershops talking about breastfeeding.
That's right. Initiatives we love, and we do not host all of them. Some of them are being hosted by other fatherhood organizations. So one thing that I will say that is a shining light in this fatherhood work is that many practitioners do feel like there is a toolkit or a something that can be replicated in this work. So lots of places, lots of states, cities, and everything will host fatherhood events at barbershops, because we know that's where Black men are, or men of color, or just that's a comfortable space for Black men to discuss things that are going on in their lives in a space that they don't feel like they're being judged or criticized in a way that's uncomfortable for them. So we do attend many barbershop talks, and in those talks, we're able to discuss financial wellness. We're able to do blood pressure for some of the men to make sure that they know their numbers. We know that a lot of men don't get their physicals or don't go to doctor's offices as frequently as they should, especially after high school. We'll provide meals for the men so they can have a nutritious meal sometimes, but also it again creates that community relationship, so that when we leave our flyers or when we leave other promotional materials, they'll check those out. So the videos that we've mentioned, and it gives us another place to continue to go, because what we'll ask is, what is your community doing that we can help with? And every community is different. Someone might be doing a 5K and they just need more people to show up to the 5K because they already have resources there for people to show up. In that sense, we'll send social media blasts, we'll do some phone calls to try to get people to show up. Also, there could be legitimation issues where some of the men need attorneys, and the barbershop is not the first place you would think to find attorneys, but male attorneys go to barbershop. So we can find out through their barbers, how many lawyers do you cut that could help volunteer with some pro bono hours, which most lawyers are strongly encouraged to do, or network. So it gets to grow our networks in a way that does not seem overly formal or does not seem oppressive or suppressive towards the men, because a lot of things we know is it's not as easy to add things into people's schedule. And we'll talk about that a little bit with that 1,000 people in that meeting, where it's easy to get paid for something and show up. But if you're not getting paid for it, or you don't believe you're receiving a benefit or a resource, you won't show up. So if I told everybody, hey guys, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, we're doing a fatherhood meeting every day, that's in the middle of the workday. Fathers might not be able to show up, not because they don't want to be better fathers, not because they don't care about their children, but they might have other responsibilities. So having that awareness, it comes from listening, which we do at the barbershops and which we do at all of our functions. Through listening to the men, listening to the fathers, we have learned that it is better to go to them at times than for them to be expected to come to us.
So let's contrast that incredible on the ground relational listening, being in community that you're doing, with going onto the call that you described before we recorded today with 1,000 people present, and you can tell the story.
Yeah.
What's happening?
So I attend many calls in which there are governmental calls, so either hosted by the CDC or the National Healthy Start or a home visiting program, which all of these things we need. And I absolutely work with them and want them to continue to do the great work they do, but to do it with more intentionality in how they do it. So in the discussion that we had prior to this recording, I mentioned that I might talk to 5 or 10 dads through the barbershops or going to a basketball court, things like that. And they'll tell me what they need, how they need it, resources that they could use. And that same day, I'll have one of the calls with one of the governmental agencies, and 1,000 people or 100 people or X amount of employees will be on the call, all of whom usually do not receive the services that they're providing or do not have direct connections with the communities in which they're trying to provide resources for. And that's usually why I'm on the call, because they'll say, hey, Wesley, this is what we have, you can hand it out. Or, hey, Wesley, this is what we want to do. Do you think there are people who will be a part of this? Whereas I believe that they need to find a way to ask those people to be on those calls. And it could be like I just mentioned, that the times in which they have the calls are inconvenient for the fathers that they're working for or with. But there seems to be that disconnect, that ivory tower and then that grassroots. There seems to be a disconnect where the nonprofit are uniquely situated to help with. So Reaching Our Sisters Everywhere and Reaching Our Brothers Everywhere is a nonprofit agency who bridges that gap. But even with healthcare policy or with education policy that we mentioned before, oftentimes PTO meetings at schools, parent-teacher organizations, are held right after school, which makes sense because teachers don't want to have to be there till 6. They've been there since 6 or 7 in the morning. I know that from my older sisters. But also parents might not be off of work yet. And if they are off of work, they might have had a stressful day. And now you're asking them to go from a stressful day to rush to a school to hear about things that they're not immediately concerned about, or could have taken some time to decompress and then go and listen to their children so they could be in a better state of mind to help and to help the school. So we want to be able to give that message that not everything's perfect. It's hard to come up with any ideal situation, but if you're not listening, it can't be helped. So yes, you could be listening to the teachers who say they want to go, but if you're not listening to the parents that said, I can't get there right now, you're not going to get the outcomes that you could achieve by saying, hey, we might need to do a 1 or 2 hour break. And the teachers might have a representative that speaks on their behalf. So all the teachers don't have to show up, but yet all the parents can come a little later. So that way they can have their questions addressed or written down. And that can be brought to the teachers for them to go through and come back with in a later week. So the processes, I think, can be changed in order, might not be as fast as people want, but they could be more effective than what we currently have now, in which it seems that many people are just being ignored. I think most people are okay with a longer response time versus just being ignored.
What you started out saying at the beginning of this was you described ways that you were surprised how it felt intentional that families are not supported. And there's a lot of research that bears that out. Like, this is a capitalistic culture. It's profit driven. It's about serving, mechanics and machinery and institutional thinking, and not people on the ground with real needs and reality. Which is why we don't have paid leave in this country, and which is why the United States is at the bottom of all developed nations, 41, for health and wellness across the board. But we're at the bottom also, coincidentally, no, for all family leave policies. We just don't have them here. So I'm wondering if you're seeing, I was a little bit hopeful when the pandemic came that, well, this will be a forced pause for us to rethink some things about how families are going to need to be supported. And there have been articles in the New York Times, have been whole series on as if they're just discovering that motherhood in America is brutal, fatherhood as well, just being a parent, a family, a baby. And those statistics for the Black community are horrific, much, much worse with maternal and infant morbidity and health. And so I'm just wondering, do you see any opportunities with this pandemic when you're on calls, receptivity for what else is there? What are the other ways of doing things? Is there an opening? Is there a space maybe?
Yes, I think the PPP program showed a lot of people that the government does have the infrastructure to help, at least financially. So for everybody to wake up one morning and be paid by the IRS, which some people do from their tax returns, it was groundbreaking for a lot of people because it was the first time that they received money from the government, not the government taking the money from them.
Yeah.
But that I believe in what ROBE hopes to achieve and Rose hopes to achieve is that paternity leave, maternity leave can grow in this country. Or there could be more insurance-based reimbursements for people like doulas or birth workers or community transformers, or that peer-to-peer relationship where those grassroots advocates are being able to be compensated for the tremendous work that they do. There's all types of hope and there's all types of promise that I think is around the corner. I've heard from some gentlemen that I've spoken to that some of their jobs do provide paternity leave because they value that. You know, we can think of big tech likely does provide paternity and maternity leave and likely has daycare in their facility because they understand if you want someone working for you for more than a year, you have to look out for that person in over a year. If you have someone 18 or older working with you, they could get pregnant, they could have a child, and now you have to decide, you know, do you want to retain that talent and have that person see you as an asset in their lives, or do you just see them as a generating asset that, you know, you can just replace? So I think leaving that capitalistic model, yet still valuing long-term growth, there is still that room for that. So more paternity leave, more maternity leave, stronger child care services, which certain administrations are pushing for, but it can be done privately. So, you know, there is that interplay where the government can be a great source of help, but does not have to be the only source of help. There are private organizations, private foundations who see the benefit of it, and I'm sure through credits and other incentives, see why it's worth doing it. So I do, you know, in the next decade or less, believe that we are headed in a positive direction.
That's really great to hear. That's really great to hear. Before we go, I wanted to hear about the book. Reaching Our Brothers Everywhere has a book out that's new.
Yes, we just published a book this year, Brothers Within Reach, Essays from the Heart. They are authored by my father, my Wisdom Council members, Carl Root, Kevin Fuller, Kevin Sherman, Calvin Williams, Greg Long, and I'm hoping I'm not missing anyone, pretty sure that's it, and myself. And it was just a small book. It's about 40 pages, 42 pages. Just wanted to share with our audience some of the things that were on our minds, things that were on our hearts, let them know who we were as men. We also hope to have other versions of this story. We might make it into something like a collectible where we ask people to come to us with their books and we'll sign them for them. So at our conferences, or also as a way of like a passport where we want to come help your community. And when we come to help your community, we'll sign the book for you to kind of show people who's in what groups, things like that. But that's something that we've been doing, and some other versions that we're looking to do soon. I'll definitely love for people to buy the book or reach out to us with their feedback on how we can improve the book, and or if they would like to be a part of it. So we do want a younger version. We do so people under the age of 25. We might want an older version, people 60 and older, talking about their grandkids or what they've seen through several generations. So we do advocate for authorship, also for literacy. We know that fathers can spend time with their children for free if they're reading to their children. So again, it's something that doesn't cost anything, but it's something that is passed on, and children remember things like that, of my dad spending time reading with me or someone spending time reading with me. But, you know, we think it'd be a proud moment if you could also say you were the person who wrote that. And we want to show, we want to reduce barriers. So people who think that I can't be an author because I don't know a publishing company or I'm not a scholarly person. We have people with various backgrounds in this book, showing them that this could be done.
Oh, that's fantastic. Is there anything else you want to give us an update on, Wesley? There's so many creative and inspirational ways that ROBE has gone around over and through barriers to breastfeeding. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just continue to support others. So a family saying that we have is, as you continue to be blessed, continue to pass the blessings on. And that's something that my family lives by, but we also kind of incorporate in our business. Being a nonprofit and being grant funded, we're giving funds to support our communities that kind of use us as a vehicle to go to our community. And we believe that model is helpful. A lot of people have worked in silos for so long. And some of that is either the scarcity model of believing that if you don't stake your claim in your territory now, there won't be a chance for you to do it later, self-preservation and all of those humanly concerns, which I don't want to downplay or don't believe that is not a strong motivation for a lot of people. But we believe that now is a great time for others to lean in, to help, to work together, because there are those strength in numbers. Sometimes opportunities aren't available to an organization of one person. Whereas if you had 8 other people who could sign a letter of support saying that they'll help you do your mission, then you can receive maybe more money than you can do anything with, or more resources that you'll be able to handle, which again, you can bring more people on to pass along. So just in the most sincerest, genuine, authentic way possible, I really do encourage people to reach out for support and to support others if possible, knowing your capacity, taking care of yourself, but also knowing that not everything has to be tick for tat. There's some things where you'll have to grow a tree and it may not fully grow until the next generation. So another saying, just plenty of these sayings, that you may plant a tree in which you won't be able to enjoy the shade. So just being able to plan for the future and understand that every benefit has to be for you.
Wow. Well, thank you so very much. Thank you for coming on and talking, and thank you so much for everything you're doing with ROBE. I look forward to following you and keeping it up.
Thank you. And thank you to your audience for listening, and thank you for doing what you're doing. Look forward to continuing listening and following your work as well.
All right, thank you. Okay, tell us about the video we're going to see.
Awesome. So we've created several videos, animations, voiced and directed by Egypt Devin Robinson, who's a ROBE community transformer. His child who had some complications in the hospital, we were able to call and help him through that process, and he's decided to give back to us and to our mission by helping with these animations. So this one that we'll be looking at discusses postpartum symptoms and issues that the family should look for in a mother. So after the mother gives birth, goes through labor, gives birth, she usually stays at the hospital for about 2 days for monitoring and observation. It could be longer if she had a preterm birth, or if the child needs to be looked at longer, the child may stay in the hospital, but the mother may be released, or other complications could happen. But generally about 2 days, the mother leaves. When the mother leaves, that's for us one of the most crucial times in her life, because now she's away from medical staff, she's away from people whose sole job is to make sure that she's healthy. And depending on the community that she goes back into, she may have a significant other there, she may not, she may have her parents there, she may not. She may have a church or other religious group looking after her every so often, or not. In all these situations, the danger increases when no one is there. Because what we know is there could be blood clots in her legs, and that she could die from that. She could be so tired that she lays the child down in a non-safe manner, and she falls asleep, and that child falls asleep and suffocates to death, resulting in infant death. But also, if she's not careful, SIDS is an issue, sudden infant death, where the mother may not be a cause, but a lack of observation could have reduced the likelihood of that occurring. Also, her diet may change. She might not be as hungry. Someone may need to look after her, especially if she's diabetic or has some other dietary concerns. Baby blues is often a symptom that occurs after the mother leaves the hospital, where she may not feel so great about having that child and may neglect that child, and that could lead into starvation or other problematic situations with that child. Those are 3 symptoms. I believe it's 4. So that's what the video goes through, that the mother herself, as strong as she is, as dedicated to loving and raising that child as it may be, may have some chemical imbalances or chemical things going on with her that are so strong that it's hard for her to overcome by herself. So what we're encouraging people to do is be able to look after that mom. So that's where the ROBE community transformer, whether you're the biological father or simply an advocate, comes in. If you recognize a single mother in your neighborhood or a pregnant mother in your neighborhood, you might want to give her a call every 4 hours or 8 hours or something that she's comfortable with, just saying, hey, I'm checking on you, just wanted to call. How's your diet? How's your mental health? How's the baby? When's the last time you saw the baby? Things like that, to encourage wellness for the mom and for the child. And these are, the video itself really quickly came up from Kevin Sherman, one of our Healthy Start fatherhood coordinators and Wisdom Council members, who told us, hey, Wesley, hey, ROBE brothers, there's a lot of fathers leaving the hospital and they don't even know what postpartum means, let alone they don't know what to look for in their significant other when she comes home. Is there something we can do about that? Then we create the video. So now we can show all these young men this video and say, hey, these are some signs to look for. And now this man is empowered because now he's not just coming home trying to stay out the way. Now he's coming home, hey, how's your legs feeling? How's the baby? Let's make sure the baby's in a safe sleep situation. Is dinner done? I want to try to de-stress the house because I know de-stressing the house can produce to better outcomes for you and for the baby. So it's a family benefit from learning what these dads needs and then animating it.
Our postpartum story starts off leaving the hospital with our baby boy. I love my son.
While I held my grandson, I noticed my daughter crying. That was unusual. She is always so strong. She also didn't want to hold her son that much.
My daughter refused food. She's what young folk call a foodie. So her not eating was strange, especially since she was breastfeeding.
Well, I'm no doctor, but when I seen Angel's feet swollen, I said we have to get to the hospital now.
Knowing the signs saved my wife's life. We learned about the signs on breastfeedingrobe.org. Thanks, ROBE. You changed our lives. Learn more on breastfeedingrobe.org.
Welcome. My name is Wesley Bugg, and I am the director of Reaching Our Brothers Everywhere, also known as ROBE. Today, I will be taking you on a fun, exciting journey of our Bella project. Actually, let's make this a bit more interesting.
Oh, look at the cute baby.
Okay, too interesting. This is better. Much better.
Okay, next video. Believe from Belief in Fatherhood with another fatherhood breakdown, and here we go. Baby versus nipple. As baby makes eye contact with the tip of the teat, you can tell he's familiar with this part of the body. In fact, he's expecting mother's sweet nectar, but before that, he must inspect. So he begins with a sweeping motion, backhand, before he palms it and gives it a little scratchy. Now, what he wants to do here is make sure that the nipple is not defective. He knows that these come in pairs, so he takes a look at the other one. Just a quick glance to make sure that these are boobs, but little does he know these are moobs. Another thing that is puzzling baby is the sweater-like force field that is protecting the chesticles altogether. Baby makes a valiant attempt to remove said force field to no avail. Now what we have here is a classic case of intergender nipple confusion, which is a term I just made up. Baby's gonna take side mount and double up on inspection. As his phalanges tips run through the nips, he's gonna take this time to commit. Baby goes high and comes right back down on top of the target, executed perfectly as he's done so much in the past, but comes up empty. He's confused. Maybe he forgot to take the cap off. But again, he's denied. He risked it all for nothing.
What a father. Right. Did you know that breastfed babies are 89.9% less likely to be ugly?
No, I didn't know that. Where'd you get that information, Z?
A meme on the internet.